booties for black girl nerds.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for your time. I had a ball. I had to go watch some gameplay after watching the series because I was getting a little deep. So I had to take a step back to come do the interviews. So I was thinking about one of the most enjoyable things about the relationship between the two of you for me is I think that scares me. Watch you both kind of open to each other, become closer and mentor and mentee more so than what's looming outside in the city. It frightens me because it's like, oh, it's so nice to see where they're going to accomplish this goal, but the doom is going to break my heart if something happens. So, Pedro, beginning with you, could you describe like the differences in fear factors, like of the fear of letting go and being connected with another human being versus the fear of doom, since they're both different types of fears to live?
That's such a good question. The way that you describe it is such a way into understanding the characters and the playing of the characters and what the events are that identify who they are, which is really ultimately things built on loss and then the threat of loss again, of unimaginable loss, and what you're capable of to never lose like that again. Mm-hmm. And one way of dealing with that is to never love again and to never let love in again. And that turns out to be impossible because these characters reflect one another back at each other and it essentially teach each other to love again, because Ellie also has an experience of love and loss that identifies who they are, and I love that that ultimately amongst the crashing planes and infected monsters and scary humans and mountainsides and burning buildings and everything, that the real danger is in the emotional risk of loving one another.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. And like they don't.
No, please go on, because I like what Pedro said about a mirror reflecting back to each other. So you both take turns as mentor and mentee, depending on what the situation is. So Ella, over to you. What do you think that Ellie teaches Joel about himself? And what does that character reflect back that he wasn't previously seeing?
I think that, yeah, totally. She teaches him that really, like you said, like what love is again, and how he's aware of. I think he's aware of that love growing, and is very resistant to it because he knows how painful that ultimately is gonna be. And I think she teaches him that perhaps that's the risk worth taking, and that loving someone is actually maybe what the only thing that you have left in a barren world. Is that, like, if you can't let yourself love another human, like what's the point? What are you doing here? Mm-hmm. And
something that I realized that for Ellie, that when you said that her greatest fear is being alone, and Joel is always trying to leave because of dangerous it is to love you.
Mm-hmm. It's hard.
Didn't even realize
I know
the impact of that until now.
It's heartbreaking. And like Ellie's never had a family. She's never, like, her only sort of maternal figure was Marlene, and even that is a very distant relationship. And so it's the first time that she connects with it, like you on someone on a familial level, and I think that's really special. And this fear of ending up alone is like, and you're constantly trying to leave. It's
horrible.
It's just
what an asshole.
Oh, it's terrible.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You guys were great. I really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for your time. I am super excited to talk to you.
Okay.
So I must admit, I am not a gamer.
Okay.
So, but I watched the first 4 episodes of the show and I was so dialed in, I had to go back to YouTube and watch some gameplay because there's plenty of people who stream their gameplay. And it was like, phew, I was blown away about the integrity of the episodes to the actual game itself. When you are adapting a game-based content for us to enjoy on the larger audience, what's the fine line for you for maintaining the elements of the game, but still expanding out in a way that the wider audience like myself, who are not as familiar, can enjoy the series and really being involved with it?
That's kind of the big job when you start is to know, okay, we have to adapt. That's the most important thing. First of all, understand adaptation is a process. It's not, we're not carrying this directly over, nor are we just taking some element of it and building something new. Neil Druckmann, who created the game, and I went through it. And honestly, the way I've been putting it is we followed our hearts. We knew like there were moments that we loved that just echoed in us, that mattered. And there were moments that wouldn't have been as good if we didn't show fidelity. And then there were places where we thought, ooh, what if we did this? Or what if we did this to actually take a kernel of something that they didn't have time in the game to expand because of the need to send you back to gameplay and go further and go bigger and go deeper. So the truth is, it's about knowing what matters from the point of view of a fan, which is what I was, knowing what I would be so hurt by if it weren't there, and then knowing what I would be curious to see more of or different. Kind of just following your soul on that is how we went about it.
I really, really enjoyed it. I'm probably going to go back and watch this gameplay too, as I wait for the new episodes my new episodes. Sorry, audience. Sorry so much. But what was so impressive to me after kind of consuming a lot of content that's related to games, what made this more intriguing to me was the reliance on these deep, rich relationships between the characters instead of the bells and the whistles and the dangers and all of the other chaos that's going on outside them. We know it's there, but even I'm just leaning in, afraid for these characters to love each other and to care for each other because you know the doom is coming. When you look over the episodes, what was do you have a favorite part of any of this process that just changed you or more than anything else, whether it was casting or filming, or what was the peak enjoyment for you?
Well, it's hard for me to look past those early days where Pedro and Bella were acting together for the first time, because we knew, like you put your finger on it, it's relationships. That to me is everything. Not even character. I know people talk about character. I talk about relationships because characters exist always in relationship to someone. That's where the magic is. And we knew we had someone who was going to be amazing at playing Joel, and we knew we had somebody who would be amazing at playing Ellie. But what will they be like together? And it was magic from the start. It was there. I was directing and sitting there watching like a fan, even though I was supposed to say action and cut. It was there. It happened right away. And the way their relationship develops over the course of the show, it was so satisfying to me. And I also, as a fan and somebody that loves these characters in that relationship, and all the new things that I had poured into it and Neil had poured into it, oh man, seeing that come about in a legit way, that was emotional. It was special.
It's really, I'm still a little blown away. I'm a little mad that I don't have any more episodes to watch. But just even the tone of how it looks, the colors, just the moodiness of it, it really, really stays true to the game. Was it a challenge to achieve that right tone in real life as opposed to what it is in the game? Because the intersection of them is really, really cool.
Well, thank you for saying that. It was a challenge because there's some things that are easy to do in real life, easier than in video games, like making clothes move, hair. Some things are much easier to do in video games, like oh, let's just build a city block and cover it in fungus, and we can do that pretty easily. We can't. But it was really important that we always created some space that was real, that we were designed fully so that the actors were moving through real spaces, that they were looking at real fungus. And so we used, incredible craftsmen from all over the world. Barry Gower, who did our prosthetics, worked on Game of Thrones and Chernobyl, and brought all of his skills to this so that we could then create a space that felt true to the world that we knew and loved. And then after using visual effects, expand on it to where you shouldn't know where the real stops and the computer graphics begin. It's just melded together. And that's all about giving people that sense of being in a real place. Because the realer it is, the more we connect with the relationships.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, that is my time. Thank you so much. I really had a fun time watching this. Now I kind of want to learn to play a little bit. My kid's coming home from college, so maybe I have to learn how to play a little bit.
This is a great bonding experience for the two of you.
For sure.
I urge you to do it.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys, for your time. I appreciate it. I have to admit, I am not a gamer. So I went in with fresh eyes and a whole perspective. And I liked the first 4 episodes I saw so much, I had to go back to YouTube and watch some people play the game so that I could kind of fully inform talking to you guys today, since I don't play. And so, Marlene, I will begin with you. What I like about Merle is no matter what is the natural disaster that's going on around, she has a singular focus of accomplishing a mission, something that has to happen. Is that level of, how do you react to natural disasters? Could you, if something was happening, earthquake, hurricane, whatever, do you have a similar kind of focus in your life if things are going on that are chaotic around you?
It's interesting in stressful, like high stakes survival situations, I do become extremely clear. And I think that's from growing up on military bases. I think when things get intense, I get really steadfast. As far as Marlene goes, I think that her steadiness is earned. She has been through so much and had to make so many difficult decisions that really just tore her in half many times over. So having to make those hard crux moment decisions for the greater good and sacrificing self, I think is now her main modus operandi. But like I said, it's not because that's just, how she came out of the womb. She earned every single stripe.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, just a great segue over to you, Neil, is just the integrity of what the series looks like compared to the game. It kind of blew me away a little bit since I wasn't as familiar with the game. So would you mind speaking about the challenges of making sure that integrity to the game matches with your and the other creators' ambitions of involving a larger scale audience like myself, who weren't as familiar with the game, but are very dialed in with the relationships and with the characters in the series?
Yeah, that's a good question. When Craig Mazin and I teamed up, one, I guess that's one of the maybe most important parts is like, who do you make your partner in this kind of endeavor? And Craig is someone that has played the game multiple times, understood it on a very fundamental level. So that already made the adaptation that much easier because I don't have to fight someone to say, here's why we have to keep this or hang on to that, or he already got it. So then the conversation immediately went into okay, what are the strengths of one medium? And in the video game, it's about immersion. It's about these kind of contiguous spaces and letting you make choices as the character and get into action sequences, the character will really connect with them. But if we just moved it over to the TV and kept it as is, those would be really long, boring action sequences that eventually the violence would just get tiring. So as soon as we removed all that action and really focused on the drama, it allows to get even more nuance, even more realistic relationships and kind of explore these side characters in a ways that we couldn't in the game, with the hope that we will make a compelling show that can appeal to someone like you that is not a gamer and will never won't play the game. Maybe one day you will play the game, but we felt like the story was strong enough that it could stand again against the pantheon of like all these other amazing HBO shows. If you think about the Sopranos or Watchmen or Leftovers, like the show has to work on that level. And then underneath that, be authentic to the source material, which the cast and crew really brought to the table as far as like their love and appreciation for the source material, making sure we honor it, not duplicating it, but honoring it and making it an authentic. So you're feeling the same kind of feelings that someone that plays the game, but the way we get there and how we achieve it is a little bit different.
Absolutely. In that, just like the essence of it was so cool to me, just the dark moodiness of how it looked and, the way the characters, even looking at how some of the characters walk and how they adjusted themselves to fit into this niche. Merle, over for you, how much time did you just watch, not even listening to the game, but just watching how your character interacts in the game with some of the other characters to sort of shape what you wanted to bring to the screen?
Well, I lived with it for quite some time, so I had a good idea of how she, breathed and moved and what she was or wasn't capable of, and so I think the biggest jump for me was releasing myself to the trust that I did know all of that, because there is, especially, being the only actor to play their character, I knew there was going to be some eyeballs on it. And those things are kryptonite to an artist. So I had to release myself from all of that to really just be present to this new process and know that my inherent knowledge of who she is and what she has been through is serving the greater story.
For sure. Well, I thank you guys for your time. I am going to play. My kid's coming home from college this weekend, so I'm gonna get on there with her and try to get it together because I really liked it. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
It was
Awesome.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to meet you today, Gabriel. Thank you for your time.
Of course, Jeandra. We're friends on the internet.
We are?
Yeah.
Well, we are now.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, I'm glad to talk to you. I am not a gamer, so I'm not going to leave by asking you. So I went back and I enjoyed the episodes. I liked so much that I went and watched some actual gameplay from people playing online and recording themselves. And the integrity to the original game that the series has was incredible for me, particularly your character as well. When you think of situations where you find yourselves in natural disasters and what could become, what would you say is some of your own personal techniques if you've experienced a natural disaster of how to survive that, whether it be earthquake, hurricane, anything you might have experienced in life and how you brought that to Tommy?
I think we all have a bit of familiarity with getting the news of something's happening, hearing the rumblings of events happening overseas, and that cities getting locked down, and then we've all have had that experience now. So then a lot of that you obviously have to draw on, and we have a lot of in Texas. We get a lot of hurricanes and things like that, and flooding and I got a family that's firefighters, and then my little cousin Tony, he took his boat down there and was actually saving people, taking people off of roofs and saving animals and doing all that type of stuff. So unfortunately, it seems like these natural disasters are ever occurring and increasingly frequent. So our show is tapped into something that is already the front of everyone's mind. But as far as me myself, I just think you'd have to draw on your instincts, the things, your strengths, try to all contribute your skill set to the group and hopes of survival. And for me, I guess that would just be I've done a lot of combat training and I'm a able-bodied guy, And so you try to be the strength for others, use your strength to protect and to, because the whole world is already eating itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I liked how you said that, being a strength for others, because as we'll see early in episodes, and those familiar with the gaming, that Tommy and Rick are very, very close. And there will become a situation where their bravery will be tested, and we'll learn about those different things. When you first read through the story, what was most intriguing about it to you outside of the gaming element? Because it's very different from some of the other content I've seen created around games.
I think what was most intriguing would be all of the events that happen that are outside of the game, or outside of the parameters of the game. Mm-hmm. Episode 4 springs to mind for me as a favorite, and as something that I've just found so just deeply moving to have this love story plopped right into the middle of the show, and exploring these characters that we meet briefly as we're passing through this town. And then to get to see them, to go back in time and see how it all played out and how they got to that point. Mm-hmm. That was really one of my favorite moments. And that, of course, is Bill and Frank. Mm-hmm. Then there's a lot of moments like that. There's a lot of where I'm reading the script and I'm like, oh man, we get to do this. We get to fully dive into that and take it further than anybody has seen before. Anyone who's familiar with the games is going to follow us on an untread path. And that's the most exciting thing for me about the show.
Mm-hmm. Within that storytelling, there's so many like just cool elements that are layered in, but the storytelling is at the forefront. And I've noticed that some of the most entertaining elements have nothing to do with bells or whistles or unhuman people attacking. It's really the focus on how rich these relationships are between all of the characters. If you could switch with any character, you love your character, obviously, but if you could switch with any character in the show, who would you want to switch with?
Oh, let's see. I think I could take a lot of my own experience into I guess like Lamar's character, and I think I would have a lot of fun playing Nick's character and playing Bill. Mm-hmm. But like you said, there's so many characters, and we all go and we all give them their opportunities to truly shine. And I think you couldn't go wrong with anyone. But I love Bill, and I love Henry, and the stories about brothers are always very important to me, because I have a brother. I have that experience, and also stories about fathers and daughters. So Joel would be a very interesting character, or fathers and children, I should say. I grew up, my mother was a single mom. She was a 15-year-old widow when she had me. So stories about fathers are always ring somewhat true for me, and are somewhat intriguing. So yeah, Joel would be. They're all great characters. I like to play everybody. I'm just gonna do a one-man reprisal of the whole thing. If you're all right, we can do it right now.
Well, they're giving me the wrap it up. That might be a cool Instagram reel, though. We have to talk some more. But I thank you for your time. I really enjoyed the series, and I can't wait to see more of it. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jeandra. Nice to meet you.
Take care. Thank you, Jeandra LeBeauf, Black Girl Nerds. Thank you, Nico, for your time. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Having me.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. I got to thinking about your character, Sarah, and her father, Joel, and what their relationship is like, and how Sarah is like one of the only people we get to meet pre-disaster, and what her lifestyle is like versus the other younger people in the show who are post-disaster. So do you think that makes her any less durable, considering who her dad is?
I think it's what's so wonderful, I think, about seeing the initial stages of like the outbreak through that perspective is just that it's so vulnerable. It's such a vulnerable position to be in, to be young and be like that. And also for it to be kind of the first perspective that we see of the outbreak is that like it's not happening and you don't know. And then the first thing that you see is just this kind of immense stress, because no one has any idea what's going on, I think was really wonderful. I loved that it's through a young perspective, and that's something that is in the game. You play the game initially through Sarah's eyes, and I think I think it's important. There's a kind of if you've played the game or watched the game or in any capacity, there's an inevitability towards my character, which I think is important, because I think it then makes for an entire story arc for Joel, and it entirely impacts his relationship with Ellie and how they interact, and I think that it's incredibly important. So
absolutely. I think in a moment we just see kind of the world turn on its ear, and you think about things like hurricanes and earthquakes and things like that. Have you ever gone through a natural disaster, and did you think about any of those kind of things when you wanted to shape like Sarah's reactions?
I think me and my family used to live in LA when I was a lot younger. And I think there was one earthquake, but it was while I was sleeping, and I just woke up and everyone was like, there was an earthquake last night. I had no idea. I slept through it.
Did you have the FOMO? Did you have the fear of missing out?
And then I lied to my entire class. I was like, it was crazy. And they were like, I was awake. It wasn't that bad. I was like, no, you guys, where I was, and like, just, I don't know. I was just lying to be included. But yeah, no, I think I couldn't pull from my own experiences, but I think COVID is kind of exemplar of that same panic in a way. And so drawing from, the kind of stress of like no one has any idea what's going on was something that I wanted to do and found myself subconsciously doing, intentional or not.
What I've been enjoying about this series, I've seen other shows where it's an adaptation of a video game, but from this perspective, we're watching as the audience, but it's so more focused on the characters and the story driven versus the effects and the bangs and the whistle. What allure does that present do you think, to gamers who will watch, compared to it being focused so much on the big bangs and whistles?
Well, I feel like one of the reasons that the game is so successful is because so many people are completely enthralled in the characters and their storylines. And I think the reason that people will love the show is because it's just expanding on those backstories and on those characters and why they are the way they are and the way they interact with one another. And I think it's just amazing to watch it because it's such a focal point of the game. The game does such an incredible job of combining the two, of like, the crash, bang, and gore, while simultaneously really hooking you into these characters and their lives. And I think the show just manages to expand upon that. So I think it's kind of an inevitable, if that's an aspect of the game that you enjoy, then I think it's something that is very heavily focused on in the show.
Oh, I love that. Some of the scenes that I've had a chance to see some of it before already. Sorry, audience. And one of the dynamics that I really like is it really makes you sort of lean in, and you're waiting and then the thing happens, lots of things happen. So they'll have to watch and see those things. Have you had a chance to watch back the things, and you're going to watch it fresh too? You haven't seen any of it?
I mean, I've been sent it. I can watch it if I want to. I'm the worst judge of myself doing anything. So I think I just kind of want to wait a minute before I watch it properly. But I've watched some of it, just nothing to do with myself. But I'm excited to, I'm nervous too, but I haven't seen like the main, that thing that you're talking about.
It's so funny. I like to ask people when performers are on multiple type of sets and things, I like to ask if they ever popped up on set to sort of watch in a place that they weren't supposed to be. And, I've heard funny people in their character costumes being on different sets and getting caught in the background, a little mistake. Did you pop up anywhere on set that you weren't supposed to be?
I didn't. I think I was there, you don't see me on camera anywhere, but I did go and visit. It was like a day of Bella and Pedro were filming, and they were in a car, and I didn't have any. I was meant to be going back to London that day, and my flight was later, and I didn't have anything to do. And Pedro was just like, and I was texting him being like, I'm alone and I'm sad, and he was like, come and sit. So I just went and watched Back to the Future in his trailer, and went and sat and just watched them be wonderful on the monitor. So yeah.
Well, I've been having a really good time watching the story unfold. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great premiere, and we'll see what people react to. It's awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was lovely to talk to you.
You too as well. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anna, for your time. I appreciate it.
Of course. Hi.
Thank you again. I admit, like I admitted to your fellow cast and crew, that I am not a gamer. But after watching the first 4 episodes, I went to YouTube and watched some gameplay just to see how they matched up. And I was blown away. It was so exciting. The episodes are great, but now after seeing the game makes me appreciate them all the more. Were you ahead of this process? How much of gaming would you even watch to prepare for a role like this? Because embodying a character is so different than seeing it on a display. So how much did you use that as a tool to sort of shape Tess?
I read the scripts before I watched any of the cutscenes from the game. I was aware of the game, but I hadn't played it. And the first thing that I asked our creator, Craig, was how much is this to be my interpretation versus a replica of what's in the game? And he'd said, no, it's to be your interpretation. And so one of the things I think that happens when, you've got a good story and well-drawn characters is that, the essence of the character and the essence of the story is still there. It's the same thing, it's just, it's like a play. You have different, sometimes, you'll see a play in New York and there'll be a particular cast, and then you'll see it again in Chicago and it'll be a different cast, and the story will still be the same. The characters, but there'll be nuances and different bits that are different simply because the people are being portrayed through a different, lens. And so I watched everything because I was curious to see it. And then I just put it away and we just I just then did what I would normally do on a set with a script.
For sure. One of the most fascinating things about the story is I'm more fearful for the characters' relationships with each other than the bam, boom, bams that are going on around them in the city. We know the impending doom is out there, but the idea of them losing each other is just so sad because we're so drawn into this character development. When you think of Tess's best qualities, what are her best qualities, and where do you think she's a little short-sighted in the whole scheme of what's happening to all of them?
I think she's loyal. And I think that that's kind of the thing that Joel and Tess have in common. And I think that's the bit that makes them feel comfortable with each other, is that I think they both know that they're loyal, and that no matter what, she'd have his back, and no matter what, he'd have hers. And I think that's probably her best quality, to be honest. And I feel like her worst is, I think they're short, and I think they're irritable, and I think that it's, who wouldn't be living the way they have been for so long? I think that's just a byproduct of life.
For sure. In the listening of it, I watched it with earphones and stuff like that. And there's so many sounds and other layering things that the audience that will get to enjoy to enhance the experience. Were you curious in the course of filming to watch back and see how some of the sequences would take place, or what you would hear? Or was that a thing for you just to see the process of the project while it was in real time?
I tend to not, I don't usually watch stuff when I'm on set. I'll sort of do it, and you kind of like, you'll take a note or whatever, and you kind of, the experience is a different one. It's internal, and you kind of build on it or whatever based on what you did next from whatever your feeling is. It's like a different thing. So I don't ever watch stuff on set. But as far as the soundscape goes, I mean, like particularly during when they're in the museum, when you sort of first meet like the proper full-on clickers, those guys were making those sounds. Like that was coming from their mouths. And that was part of it. They had that, like the click was so that they could hear where it, bounced off, to work out where people were spatially. But all of the clicks and stuff was the actors. doing it. So we got to hear that, and it was pretty creepy.
It was scary. At first, I thought there was something going on outside my house, and I hit mute to like, what's going on out here?
What
But
is
then I
it?
realized it was all layered in there, and it was really, really scary. Some of the the scariest moments to me thus far are just those unseen things. The big booms. I don't know if I'm being desensitized, or the big booms are not scaring me. The people are scaring me. The subtle sounds are scaring me. What is the scariest to you if you put yourself, Anna, in that situation? Of all the things that are occurring, what do you think would be the most daunting or frightening to you?
Well, I mean, being killed by a clicker.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's scary. Or just knowing, if you can't get out, or watching someone happen. I think probably that would be the scary. So what you're saying, I mean, I just don't think you wouldn't want to watch your partner or anybody, just torn apart in front of you.
Just face
So
me.
the fear of that. Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much. They are giving me my time. I really, really enjoyed the episode. I'm very excited to see the rest, and I appreciate you talking to me.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
You too. Take care.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.